So this is going to be hopefully the first in a series of talks on the theory of music, but I don't want this to be a very formal talk. I want it to be more interactive. So I will say and demonstrate things that you may have questions about, and I expect that you will chime in and just ask. You guys don't need to stand on formality. Just interrupt me, ask questions, and we'll go forward from there. Okay. Where to start? I think I'll start by talking about a story that one of my professors once told us actually in a class. He was teaching a class on music of Asia, and this is at University of Washington. And I was briefly in the ethnomusicology program there, and I was taking this class, and he described this incident that he experienced. He was in Tibet. He was sort of walking around Tibet and trying to do some research for his own work. I'll probably forget a lot of these details, and I'll probably tell the story completely wrong, but I'll tell you the message that I got out of it. So he was traversing Tibet at some point, and he came across, in this village, he came across this mural. There's this mural of a procession of musicians walking down the thoroughfare of a city. Yeah, there's a beautifully painted mural, and he was just looking at all of these people who were walking down the street, and they were all carrying traditional Tibetan instruments that he could identify through his research. And he was fascinated by it, but then as he was looking at the mural, he noticed right in the middle of it, there was one man holding some kind of a lute or a zither or some kind of a stringed instrument. And he looked at that instrument and he thought to himself, I've never seen an instrument like that in Tibet before. Everything else was identifiable, but there was this one instrument that this guy was playing. He was smack dab in the middle of the procession that he couldn't tell what that was. And I think his experience had been that in that region of Tibet there weren't any stringed instruments. He was wondering what this thing is. So he asked an informant in that area, what is this instrument? I've never seen this before. And his informant told him that, well, this mural is a representation of the existence of a human being. And everything that's happening is showing the reality of the world that human being is in, except for this one guy in the middle of the procession who's creating music on an instrument that doesn't exist in Tibet. Because that guy represents the music that happens internally, the music of the mind, the music that happens in the heart of a musician, of a person rather. And you're never going to find that instrument in Tibet. It's symbolic. That's interesting. What does that mean? That means that in any number of cultures, including India, but certainly a region that is cognate with South Asia, there is this idea that music does not have to be a natural phenomenon that has physical properties. It can be something that exists within us, that is independent of physical properties. That's a fascinating idea. So what we'll talk about today are physical phenomena, but at the root of all of this is the idea of how we dialogue with music fundamentally as human beings. Music doesn't just appear. When a person performs, the music doesn't just appear. Maybe at Penn State with all the students who decide to get on stage and I want to sing a song. No, but what I'm talking about is when we decide to perform or when we decide to make music, there's a process. There's a process where the idea of the music existed independent of any physical phenomenon. It existed up here, existed here, and maybe it existed external to the person. I got into a lot of trouble with some Buddhists and atheists recently when I suggested this idea that things in music exist independent of human creation. When I say Ghira Ai Kari Badariya, whatever that song is that we were learning, the moment I said those words, all of you could hear the tune that was playing. Because somewhere deep inside of you, that already exists. It's just resonating. It's a thought, it's a process of retaining something that you heard, learned, but that learning has been stored somewhere inside of you. And it resonates. The moment I say Ghira Ai Badariya, there's something that's resonating and going, that's how the tune is, that's how the tune is. None of you are singing. Some of you are sitting very awkwardly looking at me as I talk. But somewhere deep inside of you, you hear the melody. Does that melody exist? I think it does. Music, from the perspective of Indian musicologists, has two aspects to it. That which is heard, ahatnad, that which is produced through friction, through two surfaces striking, through a column of air vibrating through vocal cords or a flute, ahatnad. And music that does not have physical dimension, anahatnad. Anahatnad, this is where I got into trouble with the Buddhists, because what did I say? I said, in the process of understanding a rag, there was a theory that the rag existed independent of human interaction. So when we talk about Bhageshi or we talk about Saraswati, rags that are associated with the goddess Saraswati, they are representations in oral form of a divine entity that we all perceive. Yes? Okay, that's one way of looking at it. The other aspect of it is, when I say Saraswati, all of you have a picture in your minds of what Saraswati looks like, how she looks, what she's holding, the sound she's making through her veena, her vahan. You see all these things that are happening. Some of you are smelling the khichdi. All of these phenomena are happening inside of you because I said the word Saraswati. But the thing is that the concept of Saraswati herself is an evolving concept, right? In times gone by, when you're looking at the Vedic history of India, this goddess was known as Vak. She was not known as Saraswati, she was known as Vak, the goddess of speech. There was a river called Saraswati, and there was the goddess of speech. And these two entities got enmeshed into one over time. So our understanding of reality also keeps changing. What I was saying when I was assaulted verbally by atheists and Buddhists was that this idea is not fixed. It is human generated, but it exists independent of substance. It exists in our minds, it exists in the ether. It's a commonly understood thing because society decides that it is commonly understood. The same phenomenon happens with music. There's this idea of something larger that is understood as a collective. Which is why generationally, for example, the music that you guys listen to, I don't understand because I don't have that collective knowledge within me. What you identify as even what is music is something that I cannot identify with sometimes. I may not even think it's music. Thank you for laughing at one of my jokes. Thank you. So what I want us to understand is that what I'll be describing is not an absolute. It is a theory of a natural phenomenon that we perceive through our sensory organ here, the ear, but also something that we experience internally inside of us that is individual to each of us. This is a theory that is not written in absolutes. It's written in relative understanding of where we are right now. Okay? So understand that first. Okay. Two kinds of sound. Ahat nad and anahat nad. Ahat nad created by friction or vibration of a column of air. Anahat nad, that which is not heard. There's this idea that anahat nad is the music that happens in the ether, it happens in Swarglok, all these ideas, Indralok, musicians, Gandharvas and all that. That's not important. You'll come across all of this in the literature. Yeah, it is divine music. It's heard when you're about to become realized. When you're about to die, I guess. So it's all these ideas are just ways of trying to understand something that is phenomenological. It is inside of us, we feel it, but we don't exactly know how to express it. I want us to disentangle the mythology from what is real. Music is something that's understood internally as well as heard externally. Okay, that's the point of those first two blocks. Also, due apologies, I ran out of time and I used ChatGPT for some of my graphics. I apologize. I wouldn't do it normally, but here it is. Yes?
So I have a question. I think you also have a take on silence in general and how silence is perceived as different by different people. But would you put silence as anada in any of, like in nada, or is it like outside nada, or how?
No, it is an essential part of nada.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
And there is silence that is ahat, and there is silence that's anahat.
How do we have ahat silence? A serious question.
There it is. Did you hear it? Have you heard of John Cage? Okay, look up John Cage. Look up John Cage. What is his famous piece? Do you remember? Do you know his famous piece? Can somebody look up John Cage and tell me about his famous?
Oh, is it? I know this.
Yeah.
He had a concert, and then the whole time there was just 3 minutes of silence.
Yes.
And the music is like the shuffling.
Is it 5:33? I forgot.
It's like I don't remember its name, but it's like a couple minutes. And
4:33.
4:33.
I studied this in
Ambient
class.
sounds were used as the composition itself.
So yes, I think I may be misremembering it, but I think John Cage basically came on stage. He sat down at the piano. He opened the cover of the piano. He closed the cover of the piano and sat for 4 minutes and 33 seconds.
Yeah, I studied in class.
What happened? What happened in that piece?
Ambient sounds, like the sound of the opening of the piano and the closing of the piano, was that like his performance, or?
Let's give ourselves 10 seconds and not talk at all and see if we can find what we hear right now.
Silence.
You're talking.
10 seconds were up.
We'll do it again. Ready? What did you hear? How did I know that was 10 seconds?
Clock ticking.
The clock was ticking. What did you hear?
Fridge. Yes. And there's like a ringing also.
The rain?
No, there's like a ringing.
A ringing,
Like the
yeah.
room has like a resonant
Yes.
frequency.
There is, even independent of these mechanical sounds, you'll find that there is sound even if you're on an isolated trail somewhere. Even if you're standing in the middle of the desert somewhere, you're going to find sound. Sometimes your ear, so used to being hit by auditory inputs, will create sound for you because it's suddenly gone blank. There is always sound. Does that answer your question? Okay. Yes.
So you are essentially telling that silence doesn't exist, like, or
Silence has qualities.
okay.
This is becoming very metaphysical, but silence has qualities, very, very specific qualities. It takes time to really understand what those qualities are.
So would you say that anahat silence would be the silence where there is not even these ambient sounds,
Yeah.
like complete vacuum? Do you
Yeah,
think that would be
space.
anahat silence?
I couldn't tell you because I'm not dead. And I'm not realized. But I'm sure it has a very specific quality.
Guruji, I have a question.
Yes.
So, for example, in the case of a singer, like John Cage's performance, so when he did not perform for 4 minutes and like that, so like maybe the audience expected that he will perform something. Does it fall under this anahat or like still?
Oh yes, the audience self-manufactured sound as a result. What is going on?
Like maybe like because they have heard him play before and then they may expect. So is it also a part of this sound? Like they're visualizing something or hearing something.
It is so interesting.
See that again. I think you're onto something. Say it again.
So I'm saying like for example, some people have heard that person before, and now that he's silent, they're expecting that okay, this person may perform this particular piece of music. So they are kind of visualizing that inside them.
Yes.
Is that the thing?
That is, in my opinion, that's a form of anahat now, because you're reliving music that is not actually does not have physical dimension. Yes.
Does it have to be music to be anahatnad? Like, what if your thoughts? Can there be anahatnad?
This is specifically with regard to music, but
This is more of a clarification than a question. But when you said music is impersonal, or it is beyond the subject that perceives music, you're not saying that music has an existence outside of human existence totally, or are you saying that human perception leads to pressure waves being music, but then we have evolved so much with that perception that it is now sublimated to existence which is beyond music?
yeah, that's a very good question, and I don't have a very good answer. Yeah, to say so, it leads to a very foundational question that is extremely simple to say and extremely difficult to answer. Are you ready? What is music?
Is that a rhetorical question?
No, it's a real question. What is music?
This is probably from a very biased view, but I can't think of anything that exists as music in the world when I don't think of a perceiver who will interpret maybe a pattern or some sort of a structure that exists in the world, and then the way you would perceive that structure is interpreted as music. But I can't think of anything.
Would you say that other patterns in the universe that exist without interpretation exist?
Apart from music, are there other kinds of interpretations which are not musical?
No, I'm saying, are there other physical phenomena that have very specific patterns, but if human beings did not exist to perceive those patterns, they don't exist?
We can't say that they exist. Because I thought how can we determine the existence of something if there is no someone who perceives that existence?
Yeah, well, I think we're getting into your field.
So we physicists try to think of one, which is the collapse of a wave function in quantum mechanics. If you don't have an observation, then it won't collapse. So it will just keep doing its own thing. Sorry, it's too technical.
It is not, but that is quantum mechanics. And quantum mechanics is weird. But yes, you're right. That is true. So perhaps there are Are you saying that music is like quantum mechanics?
Oh no. But I think another thing that came to my mind is that if somebody, like people who cannot hear, their idea of music would be entirely anahatna.
There's no physical phenomena to it, yes.
That means they might be finding music in things that most general people don't consider as music because
But even people who can hear can perceive music in things that most people
that are
don't.
not.
Yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, how is it anahatna if it's like existing in your head, but it's recreating the sort of phenomenon of ahatna?
It's
Like
a-
if you're remembering it as ahatna.
You're remembering a physical phenomenon, but then sometimes you find that you're creating music in your head that hasn't been expressed yet. What does a composer do? It doesn't have a physical phenomenon associated with it yet, but it will. You understand what I'm saying? Yeah.
I just have a clarifying question. Can I then say that for me, music is a bunch of harmonics and notes, and you need a medium for sound to travel. So if you don't have a physical phenomena like sound traveling to you, but you recreate whatever was explained now, recreate the physical effect in your mind, but it's not yet manifested. Can you call that as the unstruck sound?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So it's a virtual thing. It's not something which travels through a medium.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. So Indian music has this notion that the sound is just a physical manifestation of something that exists beyond it. And from that, actually, that particular principle, all kinds of other interesting theories of how we perceive rags and how we perceive melodies comes, and much downstream we'll discover those. But it's quite interesting, and it's a foundational question, so I'm glad that you asked that. Yeah, it's important. Yeah, are we good to go on for the moment? Okay, so then the struck sound, ahatnad, is thought of in two ways. There is, I think, if you just everyday life somewhere in a major city in India, we hear a lot of sound. Not all of it is musical, right? Most of it is not musical. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. So that is what? Noise. Yeah, so it's called kulahal or whatever you want to call it, but it's noise, right? And then there's sound that is organized in a particular way that produces an aesthetic response in the listener. For some of us, even that organized sound doesn't produce an aesthetic response, and then we consider it noise. But all of you consider it music, so okay. So sound organized in an aesthetic way seems to produce, or sound organized in a particular way seems to produce an aesthetic response in many of us, right? That is what is called Sangeet. Sangeet is a loaded term. Musicologically, it has three particular components to it. There are several people who have studied music in this room. If one of them wants to chime in and tell me what they are.
Nritya, Geet and Vadya.
Nritya, Geet and Vadya. And they are what?
Dance, vocal music and instrumental music.
Yes. So Sangeet or Sangeeta is a complex of art forms in Indian music. And as a vocalist, I'm very happy to say that the top of the heap for us is vocal music. So The whole musical system is developed on the principle that vocal music is the greatest music to aspire to. Ideologically, that leads to a lot of issues. But we will not traverse those particular topics at the moment, but then we can come and look at those later. But here's the interesting thing about it. Vocal music, instrumental music, and dance. Why dance? Why dance?
Dance is also made up of patterns.
Dance is also made up of...
You cannot just jump around and call it a dance.
I mean, people do that sometimes. That's again a matter of interpretation again.
How does the pattern manifest itself?
Physical phenomenon.
How does the physical phenomenon manifest itself?
With the body.
Movement of the body.
In response to music, how the body would respond.
Are you using the same term in the definition? Response to music?
There is an internal sense of rhythm that's
Yes. Yes, the body is moving to a particular rhythm and to pitch, right? Okay. Good. We've introduced the basic notion of the three fundamental components of all music in India. The Natya Shastra. Who's heard of the Natya Shastra? Everybody? Somebody going, I don't know what that is. Natya Shastra? You know what it is? Okay. The Natya Shastra was written by Bharata. Some of us believe that that is not his real name. Some of us believe that that's an acronym for the major components of music. Bhava, Raga, Thāṭhs, Bharata. The three art forms in Sangeet are tied together because of these three fundamental things. And if you can understand these three things, you're done. You understand music. I haven't met anyone who's actually understood all three. But they are the three fundamentals. Bhava, Raga, Thāṭhs. Are there questions on what these are? Have you heard these terms before? What is bhava?
Emotions.
Okay. What's a rasa?
How we
How we categorize those emotions.
Is that
an essence of an emotion, would that be rasa?
That's getting more towards it. Yeah. What do you say?
I was also saying is that as a transcendental state where it is bhava, but then you go above it and then transcend that attains a certain state of blissfulness.
Oh, I think yes, all of music is meant to do that for you. All of them. But yes, that's a larger principle than bhava. Okay, so bhava is some notion of emotion. Raga?
The structure in which the notes are arranged, can you call that a raga?
So generally melody?
Mm.
Okay. Talam.
No, rhythm. But
Rhythm?
I feel like rhythm would also mean we are talking about lay also then, right?
Okay, so we'll get into each of these. For now, I think rhythm is fine. So melody, rhythm, and emotion. Okay. I'll just move us forward for a bit because I think we're getting a little bogged down. But okay, so let's talk about how sound is perceived and organized. Have you all heard of the saptak? What is the saptak?
7.
7 notes. But okay, what's an octave?
7 plus
8 notes. So
7 plus first.
7 plus first. Okay. So the idea is very simple. There is an interval of sound that we're creating. Nishant, we talked about this already. We're creating an interval of sound where there's a fundamental frequency, we'll call it x, and what's the other endpoint?
2x.
2x, right? So this interval of sound is called an octave in the West. We call it a saptak, implying that for us,
You're not counting the 2x.
we're not counting 2x, right? It's outside of the interval. Okay. Minor point, but not really. We'll get to why later. Okay. So we understand this octave in terms, or the saptak in terms of 7 points in it, right? Shadja, Rishabha, Gandhara, Madhyama, Panchama, Daivata, Nishada, right? You guys have come across all of these terms. They are what? Names of? Svaras, right? How are these generated? Okay. They are generated they're generated through the process of discovering samvad. What is samvad? Samvad is consonance. So when we say two sounds are consonant, what are we talking about? What does it mean for two sounds to be consonant? Any idea? Am I just telling you what the thing is right here? Yeah, I think I am. Two sounds are exactly consonant if one is some integer multiple of the other, right? A perfect consonance. Now, we can also talk about relative consonance. So, if something is 1.5 times the first sound, we're exactly a fifth away, right? And so, if I take a point that is a fifth away, and then I take another point that is a fifth away and it drops me out of the octave, but I can then map it back into the octave by dividing by 2. Does this make sense? I keep doing that. If I keep doing that, I end up with this terrible looking table. What is it telling me? It's telling me that if I keep taking 1.5 times a frequency, I end up with that second column of atrocious looking numbers. They are all exactly a fifth apart from each other, but those numbers are just stunningly difficult because they start to become dissonant in a larger context, right? So every time I take a 1.5 times a number, I can try and normalize to the closest point that has some form of consonance. This process of taking 1.5 times the present location and then kind of moving it to a point that is a little more consonant is called just intonation. That process of just intonation is what is used in Indian music to discover where our note positions are. Okay, so what we're looking at are the frequency ratios in the fourth column of the various svaras that we are going to be using. Yeah, they're not in increasing order, they're just based on this notion of the fifth moving through. Is everybody with me so far?
I am a little confused about the 1.5 thing that you said. Say that again.
Okay, so if I'm at point x and I take 3x by 2, I come to a point that is a fifth away from it.
It's called a fifth away from
It's
it.
called a
Okay.
fifth.
Okay.
Sapa.
Okay.
Makes sense?
And then with the next.
So you multiply 1.5 to Panchama and you get to Shuddha Rishabha. Is that what you're saying? No?
Same question.
Yes.
But that's not
I think between sa and pa there are 5 notes,
right.
and you're jumping 3 by 2,
Right.
and then between each of those 5 notes, there's a fifth of a gap. Is-
Padani sari.
Oh, okay.
If you subtract You will get to see.
Think about it and we'll come back.
Okay.
Yeah, I had the same question. What is meant by fifth? Does it have a mathematical?
I understand the sa to
Definition?
pa, but the notes in between, I'm not able to understand how you are reaching re from sa. Like, how is that math happening?
So I take the frequency that I have of pa. So I've taken sa, multiplied by 1.5, I get pa.
Right.
If I multiply pa's frequency by 1.5, I will go outside of the octave. I divide that frequency by 2 to put it back in my octave. That frequency is re.
Okay.
I see.
Okay. So you want to do 3 by 4 basically, and that is how you got this. Okay.
And then I repeat the process.
And then go on. Okay.
Does that make it clear?
Yeah.
Yes.
I have a possibly related question. Does it mean that there is no place for irrational frequencies in music?
We'll come back.
Okay.
Good. You had a question?
A similar question, basically. Like everything is relying on how you set your one, and so like for both of us, like we can select our one as different frequencies, and then everything can get one offset. Doesn't that happen?
It does. So our music is relative reference, it's not absolute reference. In other words, when you are singing Nishant, I'm listening to everything with regard to your sa. Not to my sa. Your sa. So when Rajushi sings, I'm going to be listening to everything from her sa. Not to your sa. Does that make sense?
No.
Okay. When you're singing, there is a reference drone that's provided. Yeah, it's called Tanpura, right? So Tanpura is playing a reference drone. It's telling the listener where that one is. What is that one frequency? And so everything that you sing, I will hear with regard to the Tanpura. Yeah? When Rajushi sings, her Tanpura will be tuned to her sa. So I'll start listening to everything with respect to her sa. It may be complete. So if I were to suddenly stop her Tanpura and turn on yours, it'll sound completely dissonant perhaps.
Yes.
But that's because the reference has changed suddenly. But everything is relative reference for us. So if I'm listening to Rajushi sing, I'll only listen to her Tanpura while she's singing. Does that make sense? Yeah. Sorry. Irrationals. Simple theory of consonance is that the more the larger the numerator and denominator of a ratio of frequencies, the more dissonant it sounds. So irrationals will obviously sound extremely dissonant, right?
That's why the Tibrama sounds so dissonant in general.
Yes, because look at its fraction.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. But does it mean it has no place in music? No. There's a whole movement around that called atonal music.
What music?
Atonal music. Do I understand and appreciate it? No. But that's me. The others who get it. Yeah.
So is it that like Shruti have to do something with Shruti, or that is different?
You guys are too advanced for me. Just hang on. We'll come to that. Not in this talk. We won't even talk about it this time. But yes, that's a very good question.
When people do mid, that time are they covering irrational multiples? Or no, those are also supposed to be covered like multiples like this.
There's a lot to be said on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you said that for a perfect consonant it should be X or 2X, and sometimes you can have consonants that are not perfect, and you said pa, right?
Yes, it's not a perfect consonance, but it's very close.
Are there any other notes which are not perfect consonants but close enough?
So just look at the fraction column there. So anything that looks very well formed, single digit over single digit, tends to be more consonant in our hearing. Things that are multiple digits over multiple digits tend to be more dissonant.
Okay.
Yeah? Yes.
We have so consonants are basically these sa, re, ga, ma. What is that?
Say that again.
Have you defined consonants yet? Like what we are talking about?
So that's what I'm saying. If the fraction looks nice,
Yes.
3 by 2, 9 by 8, 5 by 4, that kind of thing, we hear it more as a consonant sound.
Consonant means what? Like I don't get the meaning of that.
Okay, so here's my one. Here's my fifth. That's a komal re. Komal re. 16 by 15. From komal re, if I go towards sa, am I making anybody sick? I'm making me sick. Consonants. So the phenomenon is such that if things are extremely consonant, then the intervals as we approach the consonant point are extremely dissonant. So we'll hear beats basically, and so it kind of, the dissonance peaks and then suddenly crashes into consonance, right? That's typically what happens with extremely consonant points. Is that clear? Does that answer the question though for you?
So basically, consonants are those points where we decide our references.
We decide our?
These references like sa, re, like those exact points are called consonants. Those exact frequencies.
No, consonance is how well two frequencies match each other. Like how remember when we were talking about how you feel like the sound is melding into the tanpura when you're singing? The more you feel that, the more consonant you are.
When you go through the first circle of fifth, what notes do we get initially? Like if you start from sa, you go 1.5 times, you get pa. From there you go 1.5. Do you get like komal re or
Shuddha re. Look at that first column. That's the cycle.
Do we get any komal?
Yeah.
So, if I may, am I sort of understanding this correctly? The difference between the frequencies are not constants; they are variable. It's like a non-linear scale, is it?
Difference between
the neighboring sounds listed on that table as rows. They are not constant, right?
So these are, you can think of them as rest stops on a highway.
Right.
So if I'm singing na, I've gone from pa to komal re na. But if I'm singing, for example, Sri Rag, I won't sing na. I won't do that. I'll do na. So I've traversed the line of frequencies that take me from pa to re. Yes. Is that what you were asking?
Yeah, I think I've got something more basic, like the neighboring rows.
Yes.
If you map them to frequency, suppose you set the scale by starting at a particular frequency, and then you take the frequency difference between the neighboring sounds. That's not a constant.
That's not a constant.
rows.
No, that is not. That is not.
Linear.
Yes, that is not a constant. Yes, in fact, that's what that looks like.
Ah, okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
And so is that more like experientially determined, has been determined across the ages that this particular ratio is the most consonant, like 1.5 times?
It is, it is experiential. If you go to other cultures and look at their tonal systems, they'll be completely different. So how we perceive aesthetics is different from how others perceive aesthetics.
How do we end up with octaves always?
How do we end up with octaves?
I mean, I guess are there other cultures where you don't have octaves, you have 17, 18, whatever numbers?
Yes.
So like in Western, like the Western tradition, so like are not like the notes from do, are they not what should I say? Like are they not the same? Yeah, are they not mapped to this? Are they completely different?
Western.
Like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, are they?
Are they exactly same as the
Are they the same or are they like different?
They are slightly different.
Slightly different.
They're slightly different because of cultural context. So why did that happen? That happened because Indian music over time has evolved into a largely individualistic pursuit. We talk about it as a sadhana more than a performance sometimes, right? It's an individualistic pursuit. So this allows us to focus on what is consonant for us, right? Like we were able to use just intonation because it is a pursuit for me, right? Whereas if you're looking at a Western tradition where there's multiple instruments that are playing together, their ranges are slightly different. There's orchestras that play together with all kinds of different timbres and instrument types. Then you have to have some basic standardization that everybody can tune to. And so that led to the creation of the equally tempered scale, which is slightly different from.
So does that mean they have a more linear division?
It's not linear. It is logarithmically even.
Okay.
Yes, but it is different from what we do. But it doesn't stop us from communicating with Western musicians because it's close enough.
Because I asked that question because sometime very long back in my childhood, I heard someone singing the 7 notes in the Western tradition and they were singing it exactly like we sing Saregama Pada. So like, they were literally like do, re, mi, fa. It sounded almost the same as, I was not able to like figure out the difference between the two. So yes.
Yeah, close enough.
Close enough.
I'm still stuck in that table. So is there like a function that will cover all these points? Or is like what's the math behind it? I'm confused after I understood pop, but then I lost it.
Oh, okay, so you understood how we got to pa, right? How did we get to pa?
It's like 3 by 2, like 1.5, and then you did 1.5 into 1.5 divided by 2, which is 9 by 8.
Yes. Now I take 1.125 and multiply it by 3 by 2 and I get 1.6875. Well, whatever the normalized is. So do it if you have access to a, yeah. So 1.125 times 1.5. You get?
That would be what? 1.68.
What did you get? Did somebody do the?
What is the third point mean? No, not normalized. How is that done?
Yeah, I'll just talk about that in 1 second. Can somebody give me that number? Yeah, 1.6875. That's the next point. You see it? Do you understand how it's working now? Yeah. The normalization is basically what's happening is that the actual frequency value is what you see in the second column. But then when you're singing, that sounds slightly dissonant. So to achieve consonance, you move to the closest ratio, the closest nice ratio. Yeah. And that happens naturally. Like we seek out consonants.
So because the Tivra Madhyam could have been like 1.4, that would be easier in fraction wise, right? But still like kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why it's a natural process.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Are we good so far? Shall we move on? Yeah? Have I answered all questions? If I haven't, please stop me.
I know, sorry.
Yes.
I find this quite interesting. So, in the Indian music system, are there other choices of this number 1.5? That can be chosen, and everything can be cast in terms of a different basis.
Yes, well, sometimes we construct a cycle of fourths,
Okay.
but we'll end up with the same numbers.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we use Hatu Ma instead of 5 basically.
So just a very kind of lame heuristic way of looking at it is sa re ga ma pa, fifth, pa dha ni sa, fourth. So they're inverse intervals basically. Yeah. Yeah. Good? Okay. Oh yes, the other thing that I want to point out is that if you look at how the swaras are laid out, of course we know that there are these, we like to talk about the sapta swaras, right? But actually we use 12. We use 12 points, we don't use 7, right? So
One thing, I understand the second column and the fourth column. What was the normalized column about?
That's what
who would like to explain it? Vishak,
If I understood it correctly, then because the frequency in the second column doesn't sound as well, doesn't play well with the other frequencies, so you just
Oh, yeah.
go to the nearest one which sounds good.
Okay.
Yes?
Nearest
Same
fraction.
idea now.
Yes. Good? Okay. Oh, what I was trying to say.
So, what is the math behind those normalized frequencies sounding good?
What is the math behind it? No, it's a human thing.
It's not about like resonant frequency.
It is about resonance. It's literally about, okay, I won't be able to demonstrate this, but say sa re ga ma pa da ni sa re sa ni da. That's not sounding great. This is great. Hey. That's what's going on.
Does it also have to do with the fact that they are smaller fractions, which means overtones may really converge faster? Like the first overtone of pa would be the third of sa, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it's a smaller fraction.
That probably is the math behind it. Yeah. Good. Anybody want to stop me? The art history major is getting a little bogged down here. Okay, as I was saying, what I was trying to say is that you can see that sa and pa, shadja panchama, do not have variants, right? Every other swara has 2 variants to it. Yeah. Yes. So here's a fun thing. In old times, what we used to talk about are basically a note has a higher variant, tivra, a lower variant, komal. Tivra and komal. So you'd have sa, komal re, tivra re, komal ga, tivra ga, komal ma, tivra ma, and so on. You'll still find occasionally when you're looking at old books from the 1920s and so on, you'll find this kind of nomenclature. It is no longer used, and I'll explain why in a second. For those of you who study Carnatic music, these are the equivalent names, and we'll actually come across the Carnatic nomenclature again later when we talk about classifying scales and stuff. But for those of you who are familiar with the Carnatic nomenclature, there it is. Okay, so why this new nomenclature? Here's the thing. Around the turn of the century, 20th century, there was this drive to try and standardize certain things about Hindustani music. And there are certain very seminal figures in the history of the music who we'll come across as we study the music. But by and large, there's a need to somehow bring everybody together on the same page. So there was one very fundamental assumption that was made, and it's not like one authority made this assumption, it just kind of happened. I have a feeling it is rooted in colonialism, but I don't have any good data to suggest why I think that. But my sense is that the C natural scale was considered to be the Shuddha scale of Hindustani music. Yeah? Sa re ga ma pa da ni sa ni da ba ma ga re sa. So anything that belonged to that scale became known as Shuddha. And if it didn't belong to that scale, it remained with the old nomenclature. Which is why the only note today that does not have the Komal and Shuddha designation is Ma. It has a Shuddha and Tivra designation because the higher state of Ma is not in the C natural scale. All the sociologists in the group should now be exploring why colonialism has completely reshaped our music. No sociology majors, I take it. Okay, that's good. We can move on then. Is this clear what I said? Okay. So everything that is not considered Shuddha is called Vikrit. Yeah. So a swara, Sa and Pa are both considered Shuddha by default. We don't refer to them as Shuddha Sa and Shuddha Pa, Sa and Pa. That's it. Every other note has a Shuddha variant and a Vikrit variant. Yes. Typically that Vikrit variant is called Komal, except for Ma, so it's called Tivra. All good? Okay, now the fun starts. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Oh God, okay. Yes.
What does scale mean mathematically? Is that the frequency of Sa, or is that free to move around and then you define everything related to that?
In this context, what we're talking about is a series of points within the octave.
Okay.
That in totality can be ordered in frequency.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a scale.
So, but the base frequency of Sa can be different, and rest of the things get fixed related to that, right?
That's correct. So when you sing, you'll have a different base frequency than when Mali sings, and so you'll develop different sets of frequencies. You'll call them by the same names though.
Yeah.
But they're Yes.
What was the reason for making C as the Shuddha?
Oh God, we don't have a sociology major, but we asked the question. I think during the process of standardizing Hindustani music, it's interesting because I think the individuals the scholars who took it upon themselves to do this work were by and large Brahmins. And there was a narrative that was very current in society at that time, that a lot of our traditional arts had been tampered with, sullied, adulterated by Islamic influences. And so there was often this drive to try and figure out, okay, what are other systems of music doing? So for one of the major figures of standardization, Pandit Vishnu Narayan Bhatkande, for him there were two systems of music to which he looked for ways to, what's the right word, to repair the music. I completely disagree with his viewpoint at this point. It is archaic. It is his way of thinking from that time. That repair work, he looked to the south, to Carnatic music, because in his thinking there was less influence from Islamic culture there, which actually is not true. actually is not true. And secondarily, he looked to the West because there's this idea that India and Greece shared a musical system, which is why there's so much similarity between the two as far as Western tonalities and ours. And so I think for somebody like him, it made a lot of sense that the C major scale was like the Shuddha scale, because that's what the West was using. When he looked at the Shuddha scale of Carnatic music, that doesn't make any sense at all. Yeah, so that scale, notes that are designated Shuddha, they do not carry the same meaning in South India in Carnatic music. So if you actually sing the Shuddha scale, it sounds very dissonant to our ears. So he looked to the West, and I think that's where this happened.
Does this also have the connotation that if C is being thought of as a natural scale, now in general, women generally do not sing that scale. Does this mean it is because there are more men in this conversation and that's why it was, they just thought, yeah.
What are you all doing in the sciences and engineering? Go to sociology. Women's studies, come on. That might have been part of it. That might have been, but on the other hand, it is Western music is not based on the idea of a tonic per se in the same way that Indian music is. So for us, the idea of a tonic is a very strong concept, right? So as a male, I'll sing in C, C sharp, D, D sharp. As a female, you'll sing in F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp. That notion isn't quite translatable to the West. There are different vocal categories, but the same piece of music does not need to have specific tonic that is related to the gender of the person performing.
Do you know if there's any scholarship regarding the topic? Or
No,
should I go seeking out?
go seek out, please. This is work that needs to be done.
I'll tell you what I find.
Yeah, do it.
This thing about Islamic influence that you said that they wanted to feel like they were repairing it or cleansing it, I think they kind of never got over it, because even current editions of Rag Parichaya have stuff like this written in them. Like very current editions.
Yeah.
They still write stuff like Mughaloं ने आके हमारे संगीत को weird, like really weird stuff. And so on.
Well, the current, I don't want to get into this. But yes,
Controversial.
the current political dispensation is. Anyway. Yeah. Are we good? Yes.
What we just discussed, that takes me to this question, like, what is even the difference between what we call Hindustani and Carnatic Sangeet?
Oh, that's a whole different lecture series.
Oh, sorry.
But I don't know if. How much do I want to say about this? The foundational principles, especially the stuff we're covering today, is the same. Essentially the same. The manner and proportion of ornamentation that is used in the two systems of music. There are two fundamental categories of ornamentation that are found in all of Indian music.
What is ornamentation?
Oh, okay. Somebody pick it up.
Bye, okay, fine, yeah, man.
I'm ornamenting that note. I'm ornamenting that note. That's called a gamak. It's a vibrato. It's an oscillation that's happening around one note. Gamaks come in different flavors, right? These are also gamaks. Na. This is also gamak. So gamak is any kind of an oscillation. When I slide through frequencies, that's called a mean. That's a mean.
Mean means English word mean.
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 Oh.
Yeah, a slide. Mean. In Carnatic music, that's called a jaru. So gamak and mean, or gamaka and jaru. These are the two major categories of ornamentation we have. The proportion and application of those is very different in the two forms of music. Fundamentally, that's the place where the two systems have diverged. Even our understanding of the svaras is different as a result of that. And then there are other things. There's language, there's genres, all that diverged. But at the base level, that's what's going on. Make sense?
Yes.
I don't know where I am anymore. What was I saying?
Fun.
And when we say that a different culture has influenced something, like in music, then does it mean influencing these kind of ornaments, the swaras or those kind of things, or is it something?
Everything. Everything, yeah. Yes. Yes. Hindustani genres of music evolved as a result of cultural influences coming into North India in a very different way than genres evolved in South India. Because music in South India was very largely in service of worship. It was temple music to a great extent, but not to a full extent actually. And that the other aspect of Carnatic music is deeply suppressed right now, and it's only just beginning to re-emerge. But whereas in North India, the application and presence of music was very, very different. Whether it was through the royal courts, whether it was in temples in North India, the application is very different. And that has led to longer term implications for music in all of India. But yeah, does that answer your question? Yeah. Anything else? Yes.
They say that colonialism had a noble reason to standardize music, for it to reach the masses. But if you could go back in time and change that, do you believe that there is another way to make it into a form that people understand, and it is not so like, it does not seem like an art form that they can't reach? So they notated and they made things simpler. But if you could think of, was there any other way if history could be repeated, and if that didn't occur?
Oh no, the influence of colonialism, the intention was never to spread music amongst the masses. That was not the purpose of what they did. It's interesting when you look at the history of European involvement with music in India. Initially there was music was considered to be it was very interesting and kind of noble and kind of this great civilization with this great music. This rhetoric was very much part of how Europe discovered Indian music, particularly the work of Sir William Jones and the other early musicologists from Europe. Then 1857 happened and everything changed overnight. Scholarship on India completely changed. It was no longer this noble civilization with great music, it was this barbaric culture that we had to reform. And so colonialism no longer had the purpose of spreading music to the masses. Its purpose was to show the masses how great their music was. Introduction of harmonium, introduction of Christianity into musical discourse. It changed completely overnight. What people like Vishnu Narayan Bhatkande and Vishnu Digambar Paluskar tried to do was actually anti-colonial. They tried to find an Indian basis for the music and discover new pedagogical methods that could spread music throughout India in an Indian way. But the thing is, they were informed by their times and they were essentially products of colonialism. And to this day, to deprogram ourselves from that is very hard. It's very, very hard. I think that's where we are. Yeah.
Would it be also considered that, like after 1857, because of the fact that many, especially women who were in music or in dance, since many of them were involved in the mutiny in their own ways, because they were in general powerful because they had wealth as against other women, and the colonial powers also obviously were against them because they were part of the mutiny. So does that also come into the picture when we think about the fact that they were trying to kind of put down the practitioners of general practice, like the people who actually took music to the masses were these women, not people who performed in royal courts. Those were only for like royalty, not for the masses, not for other people. So the fact that the work of Paluskar and Bhatkande, was it kind of aimed at trying to work against that particular rhetoric that you know it's not for the masses, but they tried to make it reach the masses?
There was, I think again, they are products of their time. There was a general misogynistic streak in their work. There was, and there's actually very interesting passages in Bhatkande's work where you suddenly read it and you go, that's really
weird stuff.
You know, that I would not be able to read that aloud to people today because I've been accused of misogyny.
Like the effects are even felt today, I think. Like I have heard people say stuff like, for example, Nargis, she was the daughter of, I forget her name, a very famous musician. I can't remember her name now. But she came from the Tawaif tradition. And I have heard, like when I was a child, I would hear people just say, like in my family or somebody, they would be like, they would use a derogatory term for her mother instead of acknowledging the fact that she was a very important musician and literally one of the founding mothers of the industry. But she would just be referred to by that other term as a fallen woman or something like that. Like, even now it's like still, it's not really gone, the effect is not gone.
It's not gone. Where was I?
Fun starts.
Fun starts.
Yes.
Fun is in process actually, but.
Oh yes. Okay, so some rules. Sa must be part of the scale. Okay. So what we're trying to do is just figure out combinatorially what are our possibilities. Okay. Sa must be part of the scale. The scale must contain a minimum of 5 swaras. And a scale may not include multiple variants of the same swara. Okay, I can't have Komalre and Shuddhare, for example. Okay, so what are our possibilities? There's exactly one way for me to choose all 6 swaras that are not sa. There's 6 ways to select 5 and 15 ways to select 4, right? Simple enough. Okay, so when we talk about scale with all the notes in the scale, we call it Sampurna Jati. When a scale has 6 notes, it's called Shadav Jati. A scale has 5 notes, it's called Ordav Jati. Okay. Now, when we talk about these scales, we're talking about something that goes up and something that comes down, right? So we have an Aro, which is an ascending scale, and an Avro, a descending scale. So how many total scales can we come up with? Simple enough, right? So I can have one scale that is Sampurna Sampurna, 6 scales that are Sampurna Shadav, 15 that are Sampurna Adav, and so on and so forth, right? So if I add all of these up, there's a total of 484 such scales. These are not saying anything about tonality. I'm just saying sa re ma pa dha sa, sa ni dha ga re sa. That's what I've just come up with. I'm not saying anything about tonality. There's a total of 484 such scales. Okay, these are called, they are kind of proto-jatis. Jati is a term that we come across in Natya Shastra, and you can think of jati as being kind of a proto-rag. So we haven't really talked about what a rag is yet, but it's kind of the start of the idea of a melody. But this is a proto-jati, it's kind of a step back from that. I'm just saying here's a template. These are the notes that I can select. Okay. So here's an example. So sa ga ma pa ni sa ni da pa ma ga re sa. This is just it's a proto-jati, it's not a jati. And I'm not saying what those tonalities are. But for example, this one scale produces lots of interesting rags. Okay. So for example, okay, the same jati, any idea what this rag is? Bihar. Okay. Let's see if anybody gets this. Multani. Okay. Same jati. What was I just thinking? Madhuvanti. This also produces Patadi. So this one jati can Dhanashri. It produces a lot of different rags, right? So jati itself doesn't really help us. What's creating rags out of the jati is when I push a set of notes through it, right? So when I take a set of notes and say, okay, I'm going to use this template and push these notes through it, I seem to be getting some kind of a melodic pattern. So what we have to figure out are buckets of notes. Yeah, here's a bucket of notes that I can take and I put it through the jati and I suddenly get a melody. Those buckets in South India, they're called melakarta, right? And North India, we call them thāṭhs. Okay, so what are the what is a mela or what's a thāṭh? It's basically an arrangement of a sampurna scale. Sa re ga ma pa dha ni have to be in this bucket. I can only have one variant of each note. Yeah? So the bucket contains sa, re, ga, ma, pa, dha, ni, but some combination of these, right? Alright. So the prevalent system of melakartas was devised by Venkatamaki in the 17th century, and he used a little trick which in the West is called enharmonic spelling. I'll discuss this a bit more in a second. And he came up with a total of 72 scales. And he could use these to classify any rag that was being sung in Carnatic music. But he was so proud of his work, he actually made a claim at the beginning of his book. He says that I challenge the three-eyed Lord Shiva to come up with one more scale than what I have come up with. The problem is you should never challenge the three-eyed Lord Shiva. And we'll find out why in a second. Never do that. Why would you do that? Okay, enharmonic spelling. What does enharmonic spelling mean? It means that I am just going to decide that sometimes a note, a particular frequency will take on two names. Okay, I might call something a re as well as a ga. And that's exactly what he did. So what he said is, sa, re, according to Carnatic terminology, that's Shuddha Rishabham. Re, sa, re, re, Chatushruti Rishabham. Re, but I also call it ga if I need to, Shuddha Gandharam. Ga, but it's actually re, and here's ga, Sadharana Gandharam. But if I need to call it re, I will call it re, Shatshruti Rishabham, ga, and ga, Antara Gandharam. Okay, so he basically gave two names to some of these notes.
Just
Same.
at random or?
Huh?
Just at random or?
Not at random. Basically what he's saying is that if I have two frequencies that are adjacent to each other, I'm always going to call the lower one re and the upper one ga. And I'm going to do the same thing with dha and ni. So Shuddha Dhaivatam, but then Chatushruti Dhaivatam is also called Shuddha Nishadam. Shatshruti Dhaivatam is called Kaishiki Nishadam and Kakri Nishadam. Okay, same kind of idea. So, okay, well, you can already tell that Shiva is not pleased. So, any given mela can have 6 possible Re-Ga combinations, right? Based on this idea. A lower frequency and a higher frequency, I'll call the lower one Re, upper one Ga. And 6 possible Dhani combinations, for a total of 36 such combinations. Now I can flip the Ma between Shuddha and Tivra, or what is called Pratimadhyama in Carnatic music, Tivra Ma. I can flip it to get 72 outcomes. And if I push it through my 484 jatis, I end up with 34,848 unique tonal scales, which he claimed are all the ragas that the universe has. He made many mistakes. Because that's not what a raga really is. What we're looking at is kind of all possibilities, but we're going to go from possibilities to probabilities to likelies to yes, this is a raga. The universe might have 34,848 possible combinations like this, but not all of those are ragas. So where did Lord Shiva get his revenge? Well, Mr. Venkatamakin forgot to enharmonically spell Shuddhama, Tivrama and Pa. And so you can come up with 36 new melas where both the frequencies are Ma, but I'm going to call the lower one Ma and the upper one Pa. And a great scholar and musician in early 20th century, mid 20th century, S. Kalyana Rami, came up with these 36 melas. Dvi Madhyama Panchama Varjit melas, 36 of them. 72 plus 36 equals 108. And of course, as we know, 108 is a very symbolic number. Shiva wins. Yes? So what's the deal with these 72 melas? Well, the thing is, they're great, they're comprehensive. I can take any raga and plop it into a mela and it'll fit. But the thing is that it's mostly empty, because a lot of these melas are not really singable, right? This is the scale of Shuddha Swaras in this system. But I can't really sing it that well. I can, actually there's some Drupads in this particular scale, but never mind about that. Oh, yes.
Do you determine singability by aesthetically not sounding good, or is it like your voice is not suited to do that scale? Is that what's stopping you to sing in that?
Oh, I'll sing anything.
No, I'm just asking.
It doesn't sound good.
Okay.
I do.
No.
Yes? You look like you want to challenge that too.
I was going to say that again, could that vary from generation to generation, or has that more or less been
No.
constant?
So I'm being facetious here, basically. But basically, what is true is that most of these mailers are empty. No one has actually, over the
Trying to sing it.
hundreds of years, no one has actually come up with anything in these mailers.
That means it's more about the fact that they don't sound nice, basically, kind of.
Yes.
Not about the ability of the human voice to sing.
Yes.
Why do you have to have minimum 5 swaras?
You don't. This is what I'm saying. All these assumptions are made. This is a raga, it's called Malashri, it has 4 notes in I think it sounds nice.
Are we touching more than 4 notes when we are singing?
So it doesn't have a jati. Like what jati is it then? Does it not have a jati? This rag?
Yeah, it is called Chatu. I think it's called Chatuswari Jati.
Are there
Chatuswari Jati and Tiswari Jati. There are these two.
Are there many rags like this or no?
No. Any question?
What was the name of the rag before?
Malashri. This one? The one I think Malashri.
You said these very, so is there one with 3 as well?
That's so small, oh my god.
There isn't, but Tiswari Jati is typically used in the context of Vedic chanting. Yeah. Uddata, Nudata, Swarita.
As you decrease the number of notes that you have in a raga, what does it do to the emotion, bhava it invokes?
These are all good questions, but they foresee where we're going with all this. But yes, there are interesting impacts. Sometimes fewer notes doesn't mean less emotion. So based on Tiswari Jati, has emotion, but the dimensionality and complexity of emotion changes as the number of notes shrinks. Okay, are we good? So, at the turn of the 20th century, as I said, Pandit Vishnunarayan Mahatkande, he realized that they were very sparsely populated and that there were basically 10 scales that held most of the ragas that were sung in Hindustani music. Some were not actually, they were outside of this. But you could make reasonable assumptions on why they should be associated with a particular scale amongst the 10. So he came up with his 10 thāṭhs, and these are the ones that we're all going to be studying and working on over time. Bilaval, Kalyan, Kamaj, Kafi, Asavil, Bhairavi, Bhairav, Purvi, Marva, and Todi. Now, something that Pandit Bhatkande didn't necessarily talk about, but is very evident as you study music, is that there are essentially 3 meta categories of scales that you can look at. If you look at Bilaval, Kalyan and Kamaj, what you'll notice is that most of their tonal material is Shuddha. Sa re ga ma pa da ni sa, sa re ga ma pa da ni sa, sa re ga ma pa da ni sa, mostly Shuddha. Yeah? And then the next 3, Kafi, Asavari and Bhairavi, are also allied with each other tonally. Sa re ga ma pa da ni sa, sa re ga ma pa da ni sa, sa re ga ma pa da ni sa. Pretty similar. Then the last 4, sa re ga ma pa da ni sa, sa re ga ma pa da ni sa, sa re ga ma pa da ni sa. And then the outlier, sa re ga ma pa da ni sa. They also kind of go together. So there's these 3 meta categories of thāṭhs. And so much down the line, when we talk about how we think about rags and how we perform rags and how we, like if I'm going to do a concert, what am I thinking about? I'm actually thinking about these 3 buckets, because I want the audience to hear tonality that varies through the entire concert. Yeah? Yeah. Questions on this? Clear? We're getting tired, right? We asked a lot of questions and I'm feeling tired. The last thing I want to end with is to say that yes, Bhatkande's system turns out to be not the ideal system. There was another one that was created by Nazir Ali Jairaz Bhai, who was a musicologist who worked at UCLA in the musicology department, which is more comprehensive and actually captures the ragas of Hindustani music. It's the 32 diatonic scale system, and I'm not going to talk too much about it other than to say this thāṭh system is actually more comprehensive and actually captures Hindustani music better in classifying rags than Bhatkandeji's. But by convention we use Bhatkande's system. Yeah, I think we should probably end here because I think we're probably worn out. But if you have more questions, I'm very happy to take questions. And please understand, all of this just leads to a more interesting place in our discussion. Questions? Oh, now the question segment, you guys have no questions, I see. Okay, I'm glad.
How is a thāṭh different than jati? Maybe I'm not paying attention.
Yeah, I don't think you're paying attention. A jati is just a pattern. So sa re ma pa dha sa ni da pa ma ga re. But sa re ma pa dha sa can be sa sa sa. Sa re ma pa dha sa re ma pa dha sa re ma pa dha sa. These are all the same jati. Does that make sense?
Then what's the difference between thāṭh and a rag?
Okay.
Thāṭh and a rag.
For now, think about a thāṭh being applied to a jati is a rag. That's not the whole story. But for now, think of that as the model. If I take a thāṭh, apply the tonality to the jati, I get what looks like a rag. It's not, but it's kind of the case. Make sense? Slightly.
Like I think are saying that mathematically they are rags in tens of groups of notes, but may not be actual rags because they don't all sound nice.
They don't all sound nice, yes. Oh, what is this thing of sounding nice? Yes, that's the lead into the next lecture. Yes. No more questions? Okay. The exciting stuff comes next time.